Sharon asked the question of what are our thoughts on bombs versus kit items?
Okay. The key differentiator between bombs and kits is that a bomb produces an output item as a part of the process. Think of a kit as like a gift basket. And in that gift basket, you've just got a collection of items and they're all bundled up and got a nice cellophane and a bow, and there you go. That's a kit. A bomb, you produce something at the end of it that you can either put back into stock or you can sell. So that's the key differentiator between a kit and a bomb. Now, where things the waters get a little bit muddy is if you're using job costing. And in job costing, you only use kits because job costing itself can produce the output item. So job costing is the bomb maker, if you like. So job costing only works with kits. But if that doesn't answer your specific question, reach out to your support partner or fire another question, and we might get back to you at the end.
Yeah, just adding to that, this area around sort of manufacturing, light manufacturing, it can get quite complex. There are lots of ways to manage this. There's bills of material, there's job costing. There are also sort of more heavyweight manufacturing solutions that integrate directly with Exo, such as MYOB. So there's a few options to look at around that. So do feel free to reach out to your business partner for more details. Or again, as Murray suggested, just ask another question. A good question here. How do we create a recurring monthly invoice with a prompt for both debtors and creditors?
Okay, I can answer the first one. So there's a couple of ways of creating recurring monthly invoices for debtors. One is using a module called the subscriptions module, which is specifically designed to generate recurring invoices, where you're issuing the same invoice on a segmented basis, whether it's quarterly, monthly, annually, etc., whatever. Now, in terms of prompting you, we could probably, I guess, depending on the circumstance, my question would be, why do you want to be prompted? If it's something that happens every single month, let's automate it. Let's forget the prompt. Let's just make them. And then we can look at automating the invoice delivery as well. So we can email those bad boys out without even anyone having to touch them. In terms of both debtors and creditors, there is another way of doing batch processing, and that's through the cashbook entry screen. So you can save a batch within cashbook, and then when you go to process it for the following month, you can just go in to open batch transactions, load them up. It's very easy for you to edit the amounts if the amounts need to change each month, but everything else remains the same, like reference numbers and things like that. So yeah, as far as debtors and creditors are concerned, you can use cashbook entry as well.
I also wonder if that question might be related to a custom piece of text on the bottom of the invoice. So there might be a little bit what they're talking to there, and certainly we can pull through fields from all sorts of places in Exo onto an invoice. You could have an extra field against the creditor or the debtor. You could be, there's a whole number of ways that you can address that. Again, just reach out to your business partner for a little bit more detail. Now, how can you manage pop-up screens opening on the second or third screen within Exo?
This one could be a challenge. And the cool thing is, though, that there is an easy way of doing this. And let me just make sure I get the right keys here, because honestly, I've struggled with this in the past as well. But it's actually really super simple. I think if I demo it, it's going to go really badly. So I'm not going to. Try it when you get home. Windows plus tab. And it will
Windows
show
key
all of your
and
windows.
the tab key together, yeah?
Yeah, so the Windows key plus the tab key together, and it will display all of the windows that you've got open all in one screen. Here we go.
Very good, Murray. Thank you. Now, great question here. What does digital transformation look like in Exo without a move to MYOB Advanced? Now, do you want to have a first stab at that one, Murray, and maybe I can add some context as well?
Sure. So digital transformation from an Exo perspective there's a number of different ways of looking at this, and it depends on your definition of digital transformation. But we have a number of third-party vendors and third-party products which enable our Exo to expand and reach out into the universe and do wonderful things in different areas, whether it's through picking and packing, or whether it's through automating the e-invoicing initiative that Stephen was talking about earlier, or whether it's managing your logistics of the freight that you need to bring through, or whether it's actually managing the supply of inventory and that whole supply chain question and the challenges that New Zealand and Australia face, in particular around supply chain. There's a whole lot of things that we can do within your ecosystem to put it on steroids and make it go to that next level for you.
Yeah, maybe just adding to that, of course, digital transformations is just about transforming our business in a digital way. Typically, that means through technology. So I think one of the biggest opportunities there is actually looking at our manual processes, looking at our manual data entry, looking at all those Excel spreadsheets that sometimes we have in our business to support the process as opposed to being a reporting instrument. What do we do? What are we doing in our business, and what's outside of our systems? So I think there's a first question there in terms of what's manual, what can we actually move to digital? There's then that question of which piece of technology is the best fit for that. Now, of course, Exo is very strong, very configurable, very customizable, and also has a great integration platform in terms of both Microsoft SQL Server, but also the API. So we can take all sorts of applications and integrate those into Exo. So you can actually take the best of all of those worlds. Let's take Exo as our core, which is a little bit like Ronnie talked to in his first segment. Take that as the core and integrate into connected services or other applications, other line of business applications to address the pain points that we have. But I suggest the first step in that, a little bit like a ERP system implementation. What do? We look at our current state, we look at the way that we do things today and the inefficiencies in those. And we then imagine what that could look like using technology as a way to support our organizations. You can actually do that process without necessarily changing the ERP system. I talk about the fact that ERP stands for Excel Replacement Program, but it's manual system and ineffective system replacement. It's how do we do things better with technology? Often it's just having that conversation. I think it's helpful to get a third party involved in those conversations sometimes because it's very hard for you to see the wood for the trees. But let's look at our businesses. Let's look at what we can do better. Let's look at how we can adopt technology. And certainly cloud applications and cloud technologies such as MYOB Advanced are a big part of that conversation. But it's actually more about how do we change and how do we improve on an ongoing basis. All right, another question here for you, Murray. Are you ready? Oof. If you use batch processing via Cashbook for creditor transactions, will that integrate with the creditor's transaction listing to make it easy for creditor reconciliation, for example? And are you also able to enter the creditor invoice number?
Yes. Yes to both. So when you process a creditor transaction through Cashbook entry, it is essentially the same as entering a creditor invoice through the creditor invoice entry screen. You may be slightly, the one thing that the cash book entry screen will always do is it'll process it through as a GL transaction. So you won't be able to update inventory, for example, through cash book entry. But if it's a GL based creditor invoice that you're processing, then essentially there's no difference.
Now, a little bit of a continue on from that, Murray. And will batch processing via cash book actually allow you to make the payment to the creditor? Or is that just going to the GL?
No, so
of course, just to qualify, this is about recurring monthly invoices for creditors.
Yeah. So what we're talking about here is actually generating the invoice. So the payment is a separate process. And through that, you can use the creditor payment processor to pick up and make the payment as the subsequent step. So no, you can't do the payment as part of that batch process.
Yeah. Of course, if we're talking about intercompany transactions, it's actually a debtor on one side and a creditor on the other, and you're just doing invoices between the two entities. There's some other ways to handle that as well. But yeah, reach out to your business partner for a little bit more detail.
Yeah.
Now,
it looks like we've had the same office designer, Stephen. I'm just looking at our backgrounds. You obviously, clearly, we're using the same interior designer.
It's strange, actually, because I'm in Australia and you're in New Zealand. It almost looks as if it's the same office.
Yeah.
Boardroom's empty for some reason. I'm not really sure quite why today. But moving on, how would e-invoicing work with Exo Business?
Okay, so I'll let you talk a little bit more about the bans on this as well and the role that they play within the e-invoicing. But there are opportunities to set up e-invoicing within your Exo system. Reach out to your Exo support partner. We have and have done for many, many years, integrated Exo with vendors, customers, and we've done that through a variety of different methods. E-invoicing can use those same methods. So there's nothing particularly complex about e-invoicing. It's just another mode of transmitting data electronically and shifting invoicing or shifting those transactions between companies. It's what we've done for years. E-invoicing is just a different format. Now, Stephen can talk to you about the vans, which play a key part in the process, though.
Yeah, and so maybe just to highlight on that, the EDI value-added networks, or the EDI vans, have taken a bit of a lead in terms of supporting e-invoicing. Now, those vans do play a really important role. If you're currently dealing with larger organizations in your business, let's say you're dealing with retail, grocery chains, hardware stores, those sorts of things, lots of those larger organizations do support EDI, so they can have transactions submitted automatically into your ERP solution. So we can have an order being placed, flow straight into Exo, removing the need for you to do manual data entry for those orders. That's a huge value add in terms of our customer service teams. If you've got a large number of larger clients, if you can get rid of 60%, 70% of that manual data entry through an EDI integration, that adds huge value. Those EDI vans can also support you around that e-invoicing piece. So look, have that conversation with your business partner. They can point you towards an EDI van that can support you if you don't currently use one, but also look at that opportunity in terms of increasing the transactions that flow automatically, what we can do to try and reduce that manual data entry within our businesses. Now, another question here. Would we be notified if our current version of Exo does not meet new legislation requirements? And just I might add a few points and I'll get you to comment afterwards, Murray. Of course, we're not just talking about legislation, but we're actually also talking about the technical implications of technology changes. And they really do happen quite quickly. As Murray mentioned, that whole bank feeds example is a great example where overnight, all of a sudden, the banks do a change, or there's a change that impacts our system. So we endeavour with MYOB, the relationships that the partners have with the likes of Andrew, the product manager for MYOB Exo, to work through what the legislation changes are and the impact of those legislation changes on our businesses. But of course, I think it's a two-way conversation that we need to have. We also need to hear from you in terms of the industry-specific changes that you're seeing or hearing about, what the opportunities are to address those, and continue to support you and help your businesses move forward in terms of the way that you work with government and work with other organisations within your industry. So we may not notify you directly, but you'll also find that you do get lots of notifications around new versions of Exo and what comes out in those. It's a little bit about picking apart what that looks like and the impact on your organisation. I think if you took that approach of trying to do an upgrade every 18 to 24 months, 12 to 18 months, that probably makes sure that you're staying relatively current and on top of those things. Murray, anything to add?
Yeah, just a note that Anshu did address this in her presentation earlier, but I'd also just, I guess, make a differentiator between Exo Business, where compliance updates don't come along very often, but occasionally we do see them, and Stephen's mentioned some of the reasons why. If the ATO or the IRD release some requirements, or you know, a government decides to drop in a bit of legislation, then you know, there are times where those will impact on your Exo business system. But we see compliance updates released on a regular basis with Exo Payroll, and you know, we're just going through another round of compliance updates in Exo Payroll right now. So they do happen on a regular basis, and it's essential, if you are running a payroll system, that you always maintain that with the latest version to ensure that you are staying compliant with the latest payroll legislation.
Yeah, that's great. Got another question here. What has been the feedback of users who have moved from Exo to Advanced? And look, it's a great question. And in some respects, we talked about this with the digital transformation question. It's not just about the software. You know, this is people, process, and technology. Technology is just one component of that. We need to make sure that in some respects, technology is supporting our people and processes. But as a general comment, we do see MYOB Advanced having a much broader set of functionality. It's very deep and rich. Lots of changes coming through in terms of enhancements, and lots of very industry-specific configurations of Advanced as well. So construction edition, manufacturing edition. We're seeing specializations, professional services edition. We're seeing specializations around Advanced to suit particular vertical markets. Really good feedback from clients who have made that transition. We do see some strengths in Advanced. We see lots of strengths in Exo as well. So again, reach out to your business partner, have the conversation, look at what makes sense and when that makes sense. Just know that you're supported in that when and if you're ready. Now, another question here.
You didn't want my comments on that one, Stephen?
Oh,
you're quite happy to take that one?
I was happy to take that on the chin, Murray, but if you want to add to that, or if ChatGPT wants to add to that, you can feel free.
I wouldn't be constructive. No, they were all miserable. They pined for the halcyon days of Exo. No, it's Advanced is a great, fantastic product.
All right. Now, another question here. What version of Exo was being used by David Chambers in the budgeting and sales dashboard session? Well, I don't know specifically in terms of the integration point that David had, but we have got clients who have integrated between Exo and Advanced on lots and lots and lots of different versions of Exo. It's very adaptable. We have clients that integrate not only Exo, but things like CRM solutions such as HubSpot or Salesforce. One of the strengths of Focus is the fact that you can take those islands of data and bring them together for management visibility. So yeah, if you do want to look at that, again, reach out to Focus, reach out to your business partner. I'm sure no matter what version of Exo that you're running, you'll be fine. But of course, upgrade too. You'll get lots of benefits from it. Now, one more here for you, Murray. How do we import remittance advices in PDF and Excel to Exo? Or how do we handle large receipts from debtors?
I guess my question would be why are you importing remittance advice?
My assumption is we're probably dealing, what I'm kind of reading into that is we're dealing with a larger client with lots of small invoices. Let's take the example of we've got a payment that comes through $100,000 in this 300 invoices associated with that payment.
So we have companies that specialize in data capture. Data line as a classic example, where you have your remittance advice or your supplier invoices sent through to an inbox. Data line processes that, they scrape the data, and then it gets presented to you in a format that enables you to verify and validate that data, and then it will go straight into your Exo system from there. So it's a method of automating that process without getting down to that electronic level, the e-invoicing and that type of transactional electronic transactions that we were talking about earlier.
So just going beyond that, if you can get that data in Excel or some sort of comma separated values file, .csv file, there would be a mechanism by which we could import that as well. That might be easier potentially than a PDF-based remittance advice. We have very easy ways to integrate that sort of data into Exo. Of course, just think about how you're using bank feeds in conjunction with that. Also think about bank feed rules as a way of supporting that general issue around payment allocations. And there's customizations you can do around those bank feed rules as well to pick up transaction references and those sorts of things. So again, talk to your business partner, have the conversation, lots of ways to address those sorts of requirements. And I think we're at the end